Today, we're going to look at a story that really sits at the very edge of medical science and, frankly, human endurance. It's a deeply unsettling account of what happens when the fundamental rules of biology are broken by one of our most powerful and most dangerous creations. This is the 83-day ordeal of Hisashi Ouchi.
So, our story begins at a nuclear fuel processing plant in Tokaimura, Japan. It's a Thursday morning. 3 technicians are at work, and they're preparing a batch of enriched uranium fuel. Now, they're trying to save a little time, a shortcut that, in just a few moments, is going to lead to an absolute catastrophe.
And then, at 10:35 a.m., it happens. A brilliant, silent flash of blue light just erupts from the mixing tank. Now this wasn't an explosion. It was something called Cherenkov radiation, basically the visual proof of an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction. It was a sign that something had gone terribly, irrevocably wrong.
That blue flash, it was the direct result of a series of fatal missteps, a conscious choice to ignore safety protocols, all in the name of getting the job done a little faster.
You see, the proper procedure was slow and methodical for a very good reason. But to speed things up, the technicians decided to just mix the uranium solution by hand. One of them, Hisashi Ouchi, was standing right over the tank holding a funnel. Now, the safety limit for that specific tank, the amount of uranium you could have before you risk a chain reaction, was 2.4 kilograms. They poured in almost 7 times that amount, 16 kilograms. In that moment, they had accidentally created a miniature, uncontrolled nuclear reactor.
In that single instant, the gamma radiation alarm started screaming, but, the damage was already done. For Hisashi Ouchi, who was closest to the tank, a death sentence had just been delivered. The terrifying part? It was completely invisible.
To really understand the scale of what happened here, we have to look at the numbers. Radiation exposure is measured in a unit called Sieverts. So to put this in perspective, a chest X-ray gives you about 0.001 Sieverts. A dose of 7 Sieverts is considered 100% fatal. No coming back from that, even with medical help. Hisashi Ouchi received an estimated 17 Sieverts.
I mean, that level of exposure was completely off the charts. It's the highest, most extreme dose of acute radiation that any human being has ever been documented to receive and survive, even for a short time. It was basically equivalent to standing at the epicenter of an atomic bomb explosion.
And yet, here's the truly scary part. When he got to the hospital, he looked almost normal. He was conscious, he could talk, and the only visible injury was just some redness and swelling on his skin. But this was a terrifying deception. The radiation had passed right through him like a ghost, leaving the surface relatively untouched while it just annihilated his body from the inside out, on a microscopic level.
The true diagnosis, the full, staggering extent of the horror, was only revealed when doctors looked not at his body, but at his genetic code.
Okay, so inside every single one of our cells are chromosomes, and you can think of them as the master blueprints for our bodies. They tell our skin how to make new skin, our blood how to make new blood cells, our organs how to fix themselves. They are, quite literally, the instruction manual for life itself.
And right here, this is the core of the tragedy. On the left, you see healthy, organized chromosomes. On the right is what the doctors saw when they looked at Ouchi's cells. The radiation hadn't just damaged them, it had pulverized them. The neatly organized blueprints were now just a chaotic, meaningless jumble. His body had completely lost the ability to make a single new cell.
The medical team, who had never seen anything even close to this, could only describe what they saw with this haunting metaphor. They said his chromosomes looked like broken glass. The instruction manual for his own existence had just been shredded.
So from that moment on, Hisashi Ouchi was biologically no longer capable of sustaining life. What followed was an 83-day chronicle of a body that could only decay. A slow, agonizing process of decomposition while he was still alive.
This timeline, it maps out the systematic, inevitable failure of his body. Within the very first week, his white blood cell count, the core of his immune system, crashed to 0. By the 3rd week, his skin, which couldn't make new cells, began to literally fall off his body. By day 59, his heart gave out, only to be resuscitated again and again by the doctors.
And every single medical intervention was futile. Skin grafts wouldn't attach because there was no living tissue for them to graft onto. His body was weeping fluid through his raw flesh, losing up to 20 liters a day. Internally, the lining of his intestines just dissolved, leading to massive bleeding. They even tried a desperate stem cell transplant from his sister, but it failed.
The new, healthy cells were introduced into his body only to be killed by the residual radiation that had just saturated his tissues.
And as his body was failing, a really profound and deeply troubling ethical question began to emerge. It's a question that the medical community has been debating ever since.
Let's be clear. Ouchi's chromosomes were destroyed. There was no cure, no possibility of recovery. Every medical professional involved knew this. So, at what point does continuing treatment just become an act of prolonging suffering instead of preserving life?
And through so much of this, Ouchi was conscious. Before he had to be intubated and couldn't speak, he reportedly whispered to his doctors, "I can't take it anymore. I am not a guinea pig." He was aware. He understood the futility and the agony of his situation.
So, why did they keep going? Well, the decision was really driven by two powerful forces. First, you had his family, who were just holding on to a desperate hope for some kind of miracle. And second, you had the doctors, who were in completely uncharted medical territory and felt a duty to learn everything they could from this unprecedented case.
And so for 83 days, he was kept alive. Not by his own body, but by machines breathing for him, by constant transfusions of blood and plasma, and by a massive regimen of painkillers to try and manage the excruciating pain of a body that was literally dissolving.
On December 21st, 1999, after 83 days, his Hisashi Ouchi's heart stopped for the final time. His ordeal was over, but the lessons from his suffering, they remain incredibly important.
First and foremost, this story is just a stark illustration of the absolute biological destruction that high-level radiation can cause. It isn't a poison that you can treat, it's an eraser that just wipes out the very instructions for life itself.
I mean, his case proved, in the most horrifying way possible, that life is impossible without constant cellular regeneration. It forced the medical world to confront that ethical line between treatment and torture, and above all, it just stands as the ultimate human-scale reminder of the catastrophic price of a single mistake when you're dealing with nuclear power.
In the end, the story of Hisashi Ouchi leaves us with a question that really has no easy answer. It's a question about the limits of our technology and maybe the wisdom of our compassion. What is the line between preserving a life and respecting the biological laws that define it?